I'm Leah Mena. Welcome to Stories of Estrangement, the podcast where we delve into the complexities of family, friendship, and the ties that sometimes break. Together, we'll explore the paths that lead to estrangement, the emotions that come with it, and the ways that people navigate life beyond it. Whether you're seeking understanding, support, or simply a space to reflect, this is where we unpack the stories, challenges, and lessons of living with distance in relationships.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Nervous?
You are?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What are you nervous about?
I realized that I haven't talked about this out loud in a really long time. So it's just trying to honor my story, but you're always trying to be thoughtful about everyone else that's involved and try and bring some wisdom. But
Yeah.
So.
So one thing that has come out for me that I have enjoyed is just allowing yourself the time to think about it. Because the strength to move on from something like this, the strength to make a decision to estrange yourself, it's so big, but you can't share it with a lot of people, I feel like.
So awkward.
It makes people uncomfortable. When I tell people I do this, and people are like, that's so sad. Like, oh my gosh, but I lived with this for decades upon decades. I feel so seen. I'm so excited to hear other people's stories. I don't blame you for being nervous, but I'll try to be nice to you about it. Make it easy.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, you have a great laugh. It sounds really nice recorded.
Thank you.
Do you feel like there's any autobiographical data that you'd want people to know for context?
I was an only child because I think, getting to experience this without any siblings or others was tricky.
Is your child an only child?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great that you guys can relate on that in some ways and not in others. Because you're a very different parent. I can tell from the conversations we're having.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you need to give yourself.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, no, we'll talk about because there is that fear that you're gonna be in the same situation where your child chooses to be estranged from you. But I keep reminding myself I am making very different choices, and I would fight to not have that happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and it's a long road, right?
Yeah.
Didn't just start overnight.
Yeah.
Do you want to just tell me a little bit about who you're estranged from?
So I've been fully estranged from my mom for at least 10 years. So we haven't had any contact since then, aside from one very quick phone call. And I have to say, it's always been a complicated relationship with my mom. She struggled with alcoholism and then also very much had the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of personality. And my parents had a challenging relationship. And so I think a lot of her emotional outlets came through me or through our interactions. And so I remember growing up as a kid or when I was in high school, hearing her footsteps on the stairs just brought such dread because I never knew if she was coming up the stairs to joke around with me or tell these stories. She was always very chatty and outgoing, or if it was to yell at me for something or rail against me for not bringing the laundry basket up. So it was just always a very dynamic situation. But then there were moments where she wasn't drinking and she wasn't taking pain medications in a way that was really changing her personality. So, in high school or my mid 20s,
It's really supportive. She was really there for me. But then things started to change again, and our relationship started to deteriorate, I'd say like around my early 30s. And then I started having my own family where I was getting married, I was having a child, and I just kept seeing her make these decisions and us having these interactions that were just so difficult, were so challenging. And I also realized as I started raising my own child, I could never fathom treating my child the way that she treated me, or making the choices that she made with our relationship with my child. And I really wanted to protect my child from that. I wanted to protect my family from that. And at some point, I just stopped showing up. I stopped engaging. And at the same time, I was also being more open about the struggles our family had had and sharing those stories more. And some of our family friends were part of those conversations. And she got really angry at me for that. She felt like I was betraying her, I was bringing shame on our family.
Yeah.
And so I think in some ways, I became dead to her because of that. I became the villain in her story. And I remember the last time I did talk to her it was COVID times. It was in April of 2020. And I saw her phone number come up, and I was surprised by it because, again, we hadn't talked in a while. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, had just passed away. So I thought, well, maybe she's checking in. Like, maybe this is a good moment. Maybe she's in a good headspace. And she just started off just with this mean voice. Just, do you know why, what you've done to me? What's so wrong with you? And just went into me. And after
Wow.
listening to that for 30 seconds, I'm like, Mom, thank you for reminding me why we don't have a relationship. And that's the last time I've talked
Wow.
to her.
You had the presence of mind to say that? Because sometimes that's my problem. My head gets so flooded, I can't think of the right words.
yeah, and I think it was interesting that the phone call came at a time when it's been over 5 years, and you always wonder, right? Am I making the right choice?
Absolutely.
Is this is this what I should be doing? And I got that phone call, and I felt all the things. I heard her voice. I was put back in that space where I knew this is not good for me. This is not what I want. And so, in some ways, I was thankful for the universe giving me that moment to remind myself, like, this is a good decision. But I also had that heartbreaking realization where how awful is it to be in a situation where you realize that my life is better without my mother in it?
Yeah.
And that also, I think, started the grief.
That's what my friend Heather has said about this. She's like, it's not so great on the other side over here. Would you say it feels better not being in contact?
My life is better without her in it because it puts me in a tailspin anytime I interact with her. Like, my dad, even though they're divorced, my dad still has some contact with her. And so even his little updates of her can just throw me off. And, of course, it's carried with a message of like, why can't you get along with your mother?
Yeah. You're
I'm
like,
like, oh, there's so many reasons.
what's interesting? I had this image of what you're describing when your mom called you in the COVID times. It's like the person that was at the top of the stairs or in your room, and she's walking up the stairs, right? It's that trigger is so far deep in our brain. It's so scary in a way that's even hard to identify consciously. It's like all of that is the way that your brain was built. Oh man, it's so painful and it's so familiar to me. Did she ever get any kind of perspective on this that you know of professionally?
So she did go to some AA meetings for the substance abuse. What she took away from that experience was, oh, other people are worse. So I'm really not that bad.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you should have been fine. And then she also went to therapy and just came out of it with all the things that I was doing wrong and what I need to be doing better as a daughter. she has very much this martyr syndrome. The world has wronged her.
Mm-hmm.
She is coping with it. And what does she need to apologize for or say sorry for? So,
Yeah, and there's no magic words that you have that could change that for sure. Something that has been interesting for me, just sort of opening up this door and trying to talk about it more, is talking to relatives. What was your experience about sharing this with relatives back in the day?
yeah, that was really hard because my mom has a very outgoing, thoughtful, engaging persona with strangers and with others and people outside of our household walls. And I often felt like I was the only one who was getting to see the Dr. Jekyll side.
Uh huh.
And when I started to open up from it, and I reached a point where I felt like I had these moments where I was trying to reach out for help, like when I was in high school and even other points. And no one really showed up, or no one took it seriously, or it was all just kind of, oh, you're overreacting. And so when I started sharing some of the more serious stories, or um, stopped wanting to pretend that everything was fine or that she was fine, or just having her story out there of me being a shitty daughter, there was shock. But then they immediately went and told her that I was saying these things. And so that's when she decided
Oh, wow.
that I was in the wrong, that I was airing her dirty laundry in such a way that wasn't respectful to her. And so I got shut out. So yeah, I didn't talk to my aunt and uncle. I haven't talked to them. They both passed away in a really long time. A lot of family friends. I've definitely been ostracized from my family and from her circle of friends because of that.
Wow. I think that's particularly painful also because I don't feel like I know you that well, but my image of you in my mind is a steady person, right? And you're just having this probably the smallest amount of naming going on, right? You didn't tell the whole story. You just said
Mm-hmm.
you just like raised the flag a little and said, "Hold on, I got something going on here and this is really difficult for me to deal with." And to really be shut down in that way. I just personally think that's a lot to carry. It sounds really, really difficult.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is we there aren't a lot of great resources, right? When parents are struggling at being good parents. Like I feel like the narratives that are out there are the extreme cases, and our mind goes to foster care or the state comes in or something like that. But certainly I didn't know where to go to be like, look, I know my mom's crazy. Crazy things are happening to me, but I'm still existing. I'm still thriving. Like I'm still being fed. I'm just not being emotionally taken care of. Where do you go with that? What do you do
Mm-hmm.
with that? And even that, in some ways I felt like it is a bit of a binary choice of like
Mm-hmm.
estrangement or not estrangement, where I just had to completely cut out this person because there was no way to be in this middle space.
Yeah, there's no middle space. I was so curious about you use the word doozy in your I was like, like the doozy of a wedding story, but I'm like, "Oh my gosh, will you tell me what happened with your wedding?"
Sure. So this was all happening when I was in this in between phase with my mom,
Uh-huh.
where our relationship was deteriorating. I could feel myself kind of pushing her away more. She was also drinking more, and it was a very complicated relationship at that point. And my spouse knew this, and he's always been really supportive. He's also experienced my mom's crazy, so he gets it. But when we were planning, and in fact, being an only child, it was nice to feel validated that this other person is showing up being like, yeah, that's not normal. That's not what should be happening here. So when we were planning our wedding, I really didn't want my parents at my wedding. I also have a complicated relationship with my dad, but he tried a little bit more. He's shown up a little bit more. But I didn't want to deal with my parents at my wedding. And so I thought, well, hey, why don't we just turn this into something more fun and treat it more like an elopement? And why don't we just invite, so my spouse has a couple of siblings, and we can invite their families, and it will just be more like, the kids and their kids, but not have the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot of pushback on that not from my spouse, but from his family, because they lost their mom when they were in their 30s. And she was deeply loved. She was a very important part of their life. And so for them, these family moments, these were a chance to like really have these gatherings, and they really wanted their dad to be part of that, and also as a way just to honor their mom, and because she loved the weddings and all those things. And so it was really hard. Like I totally got where they were coming from, but I just knew in my heart, like, I didn't want my parents at this wedding. Like it just.
You knew what it was going to look like. And it's hard.
I knew.
You had the experience already at this point, it sounds like, in your life of telling your family members, like, this is not good what happened. And they had minimized it or denied it flat out. And then also told your mom. But then now you have this situation where this loss is it's a big loss. It's one of the biggest loss in their whole family history, probably. And you're trying to honor that suffering. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And
so my parents ended up coming. So I gave in because I still very new to this family. I understood where they were coming from, and I'm like, all right, I've done this before. I can just create the boundaries. And I knew a couple of the triggers would be like if my mom started drinking, because as soon as she started drinking, she gets a completely different personality, and I go into my narrow little personality mode in order to deal with that.
So you're just
I become very small.
Wow. And you're trying to manage her and not trigger her.
Right. Yeah, just like I become very guarded. I just kind of shut down, and you're just like, okay, I'm answering the question. I'm in this moment, but I'm not engaged. I'm not fully present.
Yeah.
So
not like the vision people have for their wedding and like falling in love and looking their husband in the eye. You're just like, what's my mom doing over there? What is she doing? Like,
exactly.
What kitten is being drowned in the corner?
Yeah. And I just had to I worked with the caterer to like, okay, we'll have some alcoholic options, but I want really cool non-alcoholic cocktails. I want this and that to make it easy. And I did talk to my mom ahead of time, please, like, this is the best gift you give me. Please don't drink. And of course she did. And of course she was falling all over my dad, being like overly just demonstrative with him. They're divorced at this point. They've been divorced for a long time. It was awful. But only I knew the depth of the awfulness, because again, like, she's very good at performing. She's very good at being engaging with these others. But I could see the cracks, and I knew the cracks, and I knew what it was gonna turn into. And so I look at photos from that day, and like, there's photos of the three of us, and my eyes are just, I'm just like disassociated.
You noticed that
the moment.
You can go back to your wedding photos and see it on your face. Does can your husband see what you're talking about? Or
a little bit?
Because he knows what she was up. He knows, and he knows you,
Yeah.
and he trusts your, your framing. Wow. Do you have any of the wedding pictures up at your house?
One of he and I are kissing. So you can't see my eyes.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have the rest. And I also remember that day just being angry I was surprised at the anger that came up of they don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
I was also, my mom in some ways is very traditional. And so this idea of, I finally got married, I finally have someone to take care of me, I'm finally worthy enough, like that was very much her mindset and the messaging she gave me growing up.
Yeah.
And so for her to be there and to like see it as a win for her, that also, that bothered me a lot. So I wasn't able to make the day my own.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Yeah.
the flip side to me is also like I hear you say like she didn't deserve it. Like the
Hmm.
reality is that you didn't deserve it, right? You didn't deserve to have someone who has this framework of who you are be around you or be allowed to be close to you. But, you know, here we are.
Yeah, I know. And so, like thinking about that story, what should I have done differently? I think I tried to have the heart to heart, particularly with my sister-in-law, of like why it bothered me, but I don't know if I would. It's so hard to articulate, right?
Yeah.
Especially to someone who's lost their mom, and it seems unfathomable that you would choose not to want your mom there. And so I think it was just hard to connect on that. I wonder. I wonder. I think I wish I'd been more courageous and just flat out said to my parents, "I'm sorry, I don't want you there." Just had my spouse's father there, and just made that choice. I was in limbo,
Mm-hmm.
um, but as you know, like estrangement is weird. Like you're in this like in between space for a while, usually, where you're it's hard to let go, and
Mm-hmm. For me, I think it's a way, this is who I see myself as a person. And estrangement
yeah,
doesn't match like my vision of myself in a way.
right. Like
It
it's
is
just
surreal. It's surreal.
so surreal.
I think that's segues into like parenting. I think parenting
Hmm.
probably opened up so much of your heart about this. And I would imagine looking at your own inner child, like who do you want to be as a parent and
Yeah.
and healing that person because you can't carry all of that into your everyday of parenting. You're just trying to be the best parent you can be. Do you want to share a little bit about that limbo that we're talking about with your dad? How you're navigating that?
Things have also been complicated with my dad, where he was very much not emotionally engaged when I was growing up. He worked really long hours. He was also drinking a lot. And so he just, all the issues that our family was having and challenges that we were dealing with, he just tuned it out and kind of stayed away from it. And he just wanted the magic wand to be wave of like, why can't you get along with your mother? Why can't things be fine here? Why are we fighting? But then in my 20s, I I did find I was trying to have better relationships with my parents. In part, I was really poor. Like I was coming out of college with my own debt. My parents hadn't saved a lot of money for me for college. I was working nonprofit jobs. So I was just struggling to make ends meet. They were in a place financially once in their life where they could help and support me. But of course, that came at a cost, like the expectation that I
Mm-hmm.
was showing up and engaging more. And it worked. It was okay for a while. And my dad and I actually would do these we'd go to different restaurants and check things out. And so, like, having this food and talking about this food, and slowly but surely, we got to know each other better and more. And then when I had my child, my dad got really involved. Like he was willing to show up and
Hmm.
be there and was engaged until he wasn't. Until I think my child started having like their own opinions and
Uh-huh.
their own feelings and own demands. And my dad chose to take some jobs that had him living outside the US, and he wasn't really communicating much while he was gone. I was again choosing I again felt like he was choosing not to engage, not to be involved. Yeah, we're just, and then we're finding ourselves on different sides of the political spectrum right now, and it's it's been very complicated. And he's also not engaging as much with my child in ways that are supportive. I'm starting to wonder what that relationship looks like going forward. Because every time I have a touch point with him, it just feels so heavy and it's so hard.
We're living in a very politically unstable time in this country. Is there a way to separate those things, and say, well, can we wait this out? But that's a long way to wait out.
Yes.
But it's, your dad was saying, why can't you just get along with your mother? I'm like, well, why couldn't you stay married to her, man?
Well, yeah, she left him.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. She went back to her high school sweetheart.
And how'd that go?
Well, it's interesting because I think it's definitely a better relationship for her, but he wasn't very close to his children. And I think in some ways didn't love that she was spending time with me or making time. When our kiddo was first born, they were very colicky, and just traveling anywhere with them was really challenging. And my mom and her partner split their time between 2 different states, and the only time we could see them was if we drove an hour at 6:30 in the morning to meet them when they stopped for breakfast at this one place on their way to transfer, going between these 2 states. And then we'd sit there and have breakfast for an hour. And I just remember thinking, this just doesn't feel like
connection
showing up for being a grandparent.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like I had a conversation with my sister, and she had a therapist that told her, you're still a good person even if you don't have contact with your parent. I think that is hard for some of us to absorb.
Yeah. Especially daughters. I just feel like there's this dutiful daughter syndrome that thankfully I think the next generation is changing and it's not as much of an issue. But what weighs heavily on me is as my mom gets older, I don't know who's going to take care of her. I'm assuming her partner is still there. I don't know what I'll do when she passes away. Am I planning to go to the funeral? I don't know. Would she even want me there? Those are kind of the questions I have that kind of come up at, the 3 a.m.
It heals your heart in a day-to-day moment in some ways. And then you're not also continuing to get the emotional abuse. Because I don't think there's a clear answer. There's just not a clear answer. It's never ending. But you know what you need today, which is that it's not healthy for you to have contact with her. And that seems pretty clear.
I was trying to think of what advice would I give to others facing the situation. And even just that very practical step of I had to be very clear in our will, my mom can't have contact with my child. It was also hard because the person we picked to take care of our child, if something were to happen to us, I don't know how much they're committed to that no contact or believe in that too. So that also was a lot of weight there. And having to do that and think about that and put those boundaries around it.
You did it. Now that's all done and signed. Do you feel like that was helpful for your peace of mind?
I think that same story of the unexpected call and just how that totally threw me into an emotional tailspin. I want to protect my child from that. My mom is fine until she's not. And then it gets very manipulative and very difficult. And the kind of family environment we've created, that's not, I don't have that. So I don't want them to experience that. On the flip side, what has been interesting is my child is a lot like my mom.
Oh yeah. Tell me about that. In what ways?
Yeah. So my mom's very artistic. My mom loves fake sparkly jewelry and earrings.
Uh-huh.
My mom loves butter. She puts butter on everything. Just all these little things, right? And my child is exactly that way. It's been nice that these parts of my mom that I did find endearing and that I did enjoy are now surfacing through my child and are very much a part of my child's personality. I'm hoping in a more loving and gentle environment where we're also not going to have the crazy part.
Yeah. Do you feel like the distance allows you? Because I hear some warmth in your voice, like a little corner of your heart where you can appreciate those things about your mom. Whereas if you were to have contact, it seems like it's harder to feel those feelings of warmth if you were having this contact that was so negative all the time, or even part of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because most of my interactions, they really were the Dr. Jekyll side of her, right? And mostly I was the only one who was getting to experience that. So it is nice that I don't have those interactions anymore. It's been 10 plus years. Even some of those memories have faded. But it has allowed more space for the Mr. Hyde memories to come up and those reminders. And I think it's helpful because I'm her daughter too. Like I have some of her traits. I can see some of her tendencies surface sometimes. And it allows me to embrace both like the good and the challenging and to know that I have different ways of dealing with the challenging than what she chose to do.
Yeah. Is there any guilt that lives in you around this at all at this point?
I used to feel during that limbo phase, I definitely felt a lot of guilt because I just always felt like I was half-assing it as a daughter. I would try and then it wasn't working, or I would just be so devastated after any interaction with her, and that would affect my relationships with my spouse, my family, my friends. Whereas now, I said this before, but my life is so much better without her in it. And I often wonder, like, maybe her life too is better without me in it. And it feels really sad to say that. Like, I have a lot of grief saying that. It's a different kind of death. But it's definitely a more healing space and a place where I can just be a better version of myself because of it.
Yeah.
But it sucks, right? I hate that that's the choice I have to make.
It's like a kind of death, but it's not a death, right? I wouldn't want to minimize your husband's experience of losing like a very powerful and positive force in his life. But then it's like the death of an idea, right?
Yeah. The phrase that kept coming to mind for me is like, I've been unparented.
Wow. Okay. This is such a good idea. Wait, when did you come up with this? This is your memoir. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that book has been written yet. Please start taking notes today. Unparented. That's a really good.
Unparented.
Yeah, that's a really good phrase. I feel this way very strongly that I am a trigger for my father who I'm estranged from, is that I am a mirror that brings up that monster, that brings up Dr. Jekyll. And they might not know it consciously, but they feel that this person, they know what's underneath. And unparented. It's a really good phrase. Have you ever heard? I've never heard it before. I've been unparented.
I don't think I have.
It's a good one.
You know how those little things seep into
Copyright that.
Seep into you. Yeah.
Yeah. How is Mother's Day for you? Because that just happened.
Yeah. It's been helpful embracing it more as a day to celebrate people who play a special role in the life of children. And so it's less about that mother-daughter relationship and more of friends who aren't parents or who are in different situations. And so when I was able to celebrate the day that way, it became easier for me. But there's still a moment where you're like, Father's Day is actually harder for me because I'm still in the phase where I feel like I have to send the card, and it takes me half at least half an hour to like read through all the cards of like, where's the one that's not like, you're amazing, thank goodness you're in my life.
Oh my gosh.
but more than Happy Father's Day, thumbs up.
No, this is exactly my issue. You're not going to Walmart and just picking up a card. You do have to scan through hundreds of cards to get the thing, because there's the image of the dad with the lawnmower and you did everything for me, or the grilling dad, or what else does dads do? They hug you. So they're always there for you.
Say I love you. Yeah, exactly.
The Happy Father's Day and then like even the graphics get complicated.
Right.
And so you are trying to do something else with your family. You're trying to create a home that doesn't look like this.
Yeah.
And what do you see as someone that grew up in the way that you grew up, or some of the challenges for you in that?
I haven't been able to fully let go of the fear and anxiety that someday my child will choose to be estranged from me. And that scares me. But it also helps me to make better choices on the day to day, because it's not just like it happens overnight, right? Like this is a
slow burn,
decades long project. If something happens and I don't love my reaction to my child, going back, being, I did this, that's not the way I wanted to do it. Here's what I wish I had done differently. Saying I'm sorry, saying I'm wrong, or if they're having a hard time, I just show up. I'm like, I never want you to feel alone. I never want you to feel like you're struggling alone. Or if you have an issue with me, tell me. And I just sit there and I listen. I don't excuse it. I don't dismiss it. And also just like, if they do start to pull away from me, I am showing up on their doorstep with like cookies and being like, I'm here until you need me. I just can't imagine choosing to disappear from my child's life.
It so resonates with me. We have something in our house we call the Real Housewives apology, which I don't know if you watched that show. We call it like, that's a Real Housewives apology, where you say, I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry that upset you, that I said that, which is not a real apology. And I do feel like there is a part of me that the desire for connection is so important, to be able to say, oh, wait, what have I actually done wrong here? I'm going to keep trying. And that's the piece that I see in my work in the emergency room. When you lose that connection, that cord between yourself and your child, is where things get really dangerous for the kids.
Yeah.
You know that. It's like you found a way to survive personally through your childhood and create a life for yourself, and create the life that you maybe didn't even imagine that you could have at the time.
No, there's just so many moments where growing up, my family didn't choose to hang out with each other, right? I grew up in a household where we had 5 TVs for 3 people because we just all wanted to be in our separate rooms watching something. And it was so rare that we would choose to hang out. Whereas my family now, we're always choosing to hang out with each other and do things with each other. And it feels good. And I don't know if I would have been able to have that if I didn't create space from my family, from my mom.
I imagine you and your family out there in the countryside hanging out and picking wildflowers or whatever.
Chopping down trees with axes, good old family bonding activities.
All of that. That is another gift of having a difficult relationship with a parent, because you're not just accepting this is what families do, right? You're saying, I have to define what family is from scratch, and then I'm going to create that life for myself. And I'm not going to say, oh, we always do this on Thanksgiving with the cranberries. You really have to start anew yourself. And I think for me, that has not been all bad. Talking to you, I so appreciate your sharing all this stuff with me, but I feel like I'm like on the edge of tears for the child that you were, and how alone that time must have been. I love to hear that you're healing, and I think that you deserve a lot of healing. So I appreciate your sharing this.
I think about that a lot for my child too. Like, I don't want you to struggle alone, right? I do wish that I had had adults in my life who were just listening or paying attention or saw the struggle.
Yeah.
Um, and that's been where I've had to do a lot of work. Is it's hard to accept help, and I also I married a spouse because the universe has a sense of humor whose love language is service.
Uh-huh.
And he keeps wanting to take care of me.
And it's unfamiliar to you, or what
I'm
happens to you?
fully right, exactly. I'm like, I'm fully independent.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm out at our place by myself this week, and I'm like, well, I didn't take my medicine this morning because my spouse didn't leave it out for me.
That's great. You're growing. But it is hard
Yeah,
to relearn that stuff.
yeah. And how to parent, being unparented, where I spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time taking care of my parents, just trying to figure out what's that role look like? Like how do you show up in a more supportive and loving way?
How do you get that information? Where does that come from for you?
Listening to my child, I have to appreciate that our kids are really good at training us
Yeah.
and training us like what they need and how to do that. And then also, I do love that our generation is just more willing to have these conversations and to talk more openly about it and to think about it. And so getting to watch other friends and how they're doing it and
Mm-hmm.
showing up for each other, it does help that my spouse had a very loving, relationship with their mom and their parents. And so he's able to bring that into our relationship.
Mm-hmm. The listening, I imagine, is a very active process. That's what my
Yeah.
grandmother always says. She's like, it all comes down to listening. She's like, you don't need to
Yeah.
do anything else other than listen. You don't have
Right.
to offer advice. You don't have to offer your opinion, but she does.
Yep.
You just have to listen.
Yeah. And I think that paying attention, because my mom didn't pay attention to me a lot, right? Because she was so stuck in her own dramas and headspace and what was going on there
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
she was interacting with the world. So I didn't really feel like I got to exist as myself
Yeah.
whenever I was in relationship with her. And so I try to give my child a lot more space just to be and to pay attention to that and see. So that's been I've enjoyed that process of getting to watch.
Mm-hmm. Someone kind of bloom on their own. Is there anything else you feel like you want to share before we wrap up?
I'm gonna look through my notes.
The notes go directly to your memoir. I really am advocating for that. I feel like it'd be so helpful.
I think I'm getting better about it now, but there has been a long period where I was very nervous to have any sort of online presence
Mm.
because I didn't want my mom knowing much about my life,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
and it's interesting, yeah, just every time I like publish an article for work or even choosing to do like this kind of conversation,
Yeah.
one of the first things that goes through my head is just like, is my mom gonna see it?
Yeah.
And is this gonna present an avenue where she can like reach out to me? Or I think I'm still nervous that she might just show up at my place one day
Mm.
and surprise me. And that's not something I want. But
You're nervous to have this online presence, even sharing with me, having your voice. Uh-huh.
yeah, because there is a vindictiveness to my
Mm.
mom. And um, but at this point, the great thing is like I'm financially independent, so
Mm-hmm.
don't need her money when she passes away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably already out of her will. She's already like probably burned all my childhood photos.
Oh.
So there's nothing left for me, right? And we don't have a relationship, so I am finding I'm willing to put myself out there a little bit
Yeah.
more. But on the flip side, I do Google my mom every once in a while because I know nothing about her. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes I wonder if she's still alive.
Yeah.
That's also interesting too, that you can't, it's not like I fully made her disappear. I still care that
Mm-hmm.
she's out there, that I hope she's living okay, but I
Yeah.
just don't want us to have any dialogue about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let us continue to be voyeurs in each other's lives.
I definitely am doing that.
I was just thinking, we have the rituals and ceremonies when someone passes away. I wish there was the ritual and ceremony when we choose to go over a relationship, to say, this relationship is no longer serving you and I'm choosing to release it. I would love to have people that I care about be part of that ceremony with me and honor that transition with me. But like you said, it usually is, we're doing it quietly, we're doing it by not talking about it anymore. Like it just kind of fades away and it's there, but it doesn't exist. So I'm gonna start experimenting with some ceremonies here at
Yeah.
so.
I mean, why not? Why not? I had a friend that when he turned 40, he rebirthed himself.
Hey.
We got to create the ceremonies that we need.
Yeah. To take away the shame, right? I think when you do it like publicly and with others, it's a transition. There's a transition that is happening here. And yes, I'm getting some agency in it. The circumstances have also forced this upon me. And so let's honor that transition and let's be okay with that.
I really love talking to you. I hope we get to talk again.
But thank you for making the space for this. I mean, like you said, I haven't talked about this in a really long time. And when you reached out with that question, like who has a story to share? And it was the first time someone asked me that. And I appreciate that you listened and supported it. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely my pleasure. You deserve the healing. You deserve to create the life that you want. I think that putting it in the back of a junk drawer is, helpful at moments. It's an ongoing process. It's not just one thing. So I thank you for talking to me. I love it. I hope you have a good day. I hope that you feel some release today.
I do. Yes.
It's
Less
great.
Butterflies. Thank you.
It's just beautiful what you've created from your life. And I hope that there are days that you can appreciate what you've done for yourself and your family.
Yes. Thank you. This is one of those days. So thank you for bringing it back.
Yay. Good job. Okay. Take good care.
All right. You too.
Bye. Today's episode brought to you by producers and editors Leah Mena and Chris Mena. Thank you for joining us on Stories of Estrangement. We hope today's conversation has offered you insight, comfort, or a fresh perspective. If you'd like to share your story or connect with our community, visit us on our website, storiesofelstrangement.com, or leave us a message at 1-844-ESTRANGE. That's 1-844-378-7264. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It helps us reach more listeners like you. Until next time, remember, healing and understanding are journeys, not destinations.